Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to realize speech in my life. I don't mean by that I got any money for anything I said. I've on several occasions had the particular honor of being invited to make some speeches that I was supposed to get some kind of an honorarium for. I started to say moratorium. And at the conclusion of each one of those speeches, one time over in Cleveland I was to get $250, and one time in New York I was used to get $500 or $600, $700. But my conscience wouldn't allow me on either of these occasions to take the money. Now, however, I've never made a free speech. I never made a speech unless it was before a court or before a crowd where I was trying to get votes, or before an audience where I was trying to get converts. And I am probably addressing, for the benefit of the work I am pursuing, the most important and probably the farthest reaching organization that I've ever had the pleasure of speaking to, because you are the people that have the contact with the American people. So I'm not leaving my beaten path. I'm going to take the time to explain to you, as best as my limited ability will permit me, what I'm undertaking to accomplish in the United States Senate. Of course, I've had a double purpose. First thing I've had to do is fight for the right to stay there, and I managed to make pretty good. But if you'll permit me to backtrack, that's been my lot in every position I've ever held. I was elected Railroad Commissioner of Louisiana in 1918, and they tried to impeach me in 1920. When they failed to impeach me in 1920, they indicted me in 1921. And when I wiggled through that, I managed to become governor in 1928. And they impeached me in 1929. And in 1930, I was the National Democratic Committeeman. And they moved to unseat me that same year. And as you probably know, they pursued me to eliminate me from the United States Senate for a couple of years after that time. I have the pleasure to undertake to describe to you.
A bottle of capitalistic champagne responded. It proved only that nothing fazed the kingfish.
You see that? You see that bomb didn't explode till tonight. According to the tables which we have assembled, it is our estimate that 4% of the American people own 85% of the wealth of America, and that over 70% of the people of America don't own enough to pay the debts that they owe. Our United States government, under the auspices of Woodrow Wilson, then the president, undertook to find out what was the trouble in America with the people generally. They appointed an Industrial Relations Commission headed by Frank P. Walsh of Kansas City, Missouri. They made an intensive study, and at the conclusion of that study, they reported that the chief cause and the chief trouble with America was that a small percent of the people owned a large percent of the wealth. Now, you'll find that in the report of 1916 published by Congress. In other words, Woodrow Wilson's administration in 1916 said, too few have too much. Too many have too little. They gave a table. They said that 2% of the people own 60% of the wealth. They said there's a middle class of 33% that owns 35% of the wealth. They said that 65% of the people own less than 5% of the wealth. That 2 million people own more than 110 million people. That was the finding of our industrial conference, serving under the appointment of Congress and Woodrow Wilson, the president. And it's there. I propose a limitation on the size of fortune, both ways. I propose a limitation on how big a fortune can get, and a limitation on how little a fortune can get. I propose that a third the average is the smallest. 1/3 the average is the smallest. I propose that none should be over a few millions of dollars. A capital levy tax to be levied. The first 1 million not to be taxed except as it is now taxed. The second million to be taxed 1%. The third million 2%. The fourth million 4%. The fifth million 8%. The sixth million 16%. The seventh million 32%. The eighth million 64%. The ninth million 100%. To me, that no man with that tax levied against him every year can possess a fortune of more than from $3 to $4 or $5 million to any one man. Now, what's that going to mean? That's going to mean that within 2 or 3 years' time, the United States finds the treasury of the United States in possession of $165 billion of the wealth of this country. $165 billion at the minimum. Then we start from the bottom. That the 25 or more million American families shall have a homestead. Louisiana has a homestead. Florida has a homestead. Texas has a homestead. That every citizen in the United States shall have a homestead. Up to $5,000. 1/3 the average wealth per family. Not like Mr. Brisbane said, when a man has to misstate the facts, he's probably run out of arguments. My friend Arthur Brisbane don't state the facts any longer. He argued with me a while, but he couldn't meet the facts. Now he has to misstate the facts. Just 20-1 for the truth. In other words, 19/20 of what Mr. Brisbane says is a lie, and 1/20 is the truth. That's all. We're not going to destroy the Gulf Refining Company. We're not going to destroy the Standard Oil Company. But we're going to say that the limit of any one man's stock ownership in the Standard Oil Company is from $3 to $5 million to that individual, and that the balance of the people of America own the balance of what the Standard Oil Company is worth. All right. Then what are we going to do? We're going to guarantee if our plan succeeds, and it is, don't fool yourself, it's going to win this country. It's going to win this country. Not 1940. It won in 1932, but we didn't get it, but we're going to win again. 36. We're going to say then that every family in this country is entitled to the Florida and the Texas and the Louisiana homestead right, up to $5,000 or one-third the average. A home and the comforts of a home, including an automobile and a radio, the things it takes in that house to live on. Now, if you have planted upon that table the food and the clothing and the products that it takes for 125 million people to live on, any man with a thimble full of sense ought to know that if you take 85% off of that table and give it to one man, that you're bound to have two-thirds of people starving because they haven't got enough. How many men ever went to a barbecue and would let one man take off the table what's intended for 9/10 of the people to eat? The only way you'll ever be able to feed the balance of the people is to make that man come back and bring back some of that grub he ain't got no business with. Now we've got a barbecue. We have been praying to the Almighty to send us to a feast. We have knelt on our knees morning and night time. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. We have asked the Almighty to fulfill that prayer of the Scripture, that He would smile on the field, give us rain in due season, and cause our fields to yield the abundance necessary for life. And that prayer has been answered. There has been yielded too much to eat, too much to wear, everything to live in. The Lord has answered the prayer. He has called the barbecue. Come to my feast. He said to 125 million American people. But Morgan and Rockefeller and Miller and Baruch have walked up and took 85% of the victuals off the table. Now, how are you going to feed the balance of the people? What's Morgan and Baruch and Rockefeller and Mellon going to do with all that grub? They can't eat it. They can't wear the clothes. They can't live in the house. Give them a yacht. Give them a palace. Send them to Reno and give them a new wife when they want it. That's what they want. But when they've got everything on the God's living earth that they can eat and they can wear and they can live in, and all that their children can live in and wear and eat and all their children's children can use, then we got to call Mr. Morgan and Mr. Mellon and Mr. Rockefeller back and say, come back here. Put that stuff back on this table here that you took away from here, that you don't need. Leave something else for the American people to do. Now, my friends, I have in a rather belabored effort told you about everything I stand for, about everything I advocate in Congress. I can't anticipate all your questions. I won't undertake to do so. I would have loved in my early days to have had the opportunity. They don't quit depending on the newspapers. They don't know whether they're coming or a going. They don't know what to say. One day they say one thing, another day they say. But you have the nucleus, the composite group of people here, have the touch of the majority of the people of the United States. I'd like to have you, not supporting me. Maybe I can get along without it somehow or another. I'd like to have you study carefully, seriously, whether or not the American country is going to survive without recalling into being what the Lord said had to be done. Whether or not an inequality, starvation among plenty, a nakedness in the land of too much, a homelessness amid palaces, the one hand, a pestilence on the other. Whether or not we ought not to forget these big people and let the people of America understand that whether you've got an NRA or a JRA or a PWA or a GIN or a JUGR, what? That nothing can survive, that nothing can advance against this abundance, against this plenty, against this purpose, except that we say to America, 125 million, none shall be too big, none shall be too poor, none shall work too much, none shall be idle. No luxurious mansions empty, none walking the streets, none impoverished, none in pestilence, none in want, but in the land blessed by the smile of the Creator, with everything to be consumed, to be eaten, to be worn, that America will become a land sharing the fruits of the land, not for the favored few, not to satisfy greed, but that all may live in a land in which the Lord has provided an abundance sufficient for the luxury and convenience of the people in general, I think.